Yes, sir.
I'd like to call the October 18, 2021 meeting of the City Council for the City of Lake City to order. Everyone will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation to be given by Councilmember Eugene Jefferson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Dear Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for the opportunity to serve you and our citizens of this city. And as we begin our deliberations of the issues and business this evening, we pray, Lord, you will guide our thoughts and our decisions. We pray all our decisions will be beneficial to our citizens and pleasing in your sight. We ask your continued protection and blessings of our law enforcement, our first responders, and our military staff. These and all blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Lake City Council has opened its public meeting since 1968. The city code has prohibited any person from making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks or becoming boisterous while addressing the city council. Yelling or making audible comments from the audience constitutes boisterous conduct. Such conduct will not be tolerated. There is only one approved manner of addressing the city council. That is to be recognized and speak from the podium. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill?
Here.
Mr. Jefferson?
Here.
Mr. Sampson?
Here.
Mayor Witt?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Mr. Coberline?
Here.
Chief Gilmore?
Okay, we have minutes from October the 4th, City Council workshop, and October 4th, regular session.
Move to approve the minutes of public meeting.
Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes published. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Next is approval of the agenda. It's my understanding there is a matter that needs to be addressed. That's the item number 3. That was added. Amendment to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Mayor, I did not hear when you placed it, but it would be the lawsuit that was filed. It would need to be addressed immediately before number 3.
Okay, that's what I have. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So. Second.
Motion and second to approve the agenda as amended. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Persons wishing to address council,
Why is the public addressing the comments not ordered normally after the consent agenda and after the presentation? Move for a particular reason.
not that I'm aware
It's
of.
out of order. It's not normally in this order. I've reviewed all the agendas for this whole year and it's
Right.
normally not in that order.
Mayor, I can go ahead, Brad.
Sure. Go ahead, it was you.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that we moved it to the top of the agenda so then you could speak on every item on the agenda, even before consent agenda items. At the last meeting, or one of our previous meetings recently, there was an item on the consent agenda that was asked to be removed from the consent agenda. So to keep that from having to, Mr. Bowden had to do it ahead of time. So we're going to allow public comments at the very beginning of the meeting before any of the action items. So that was, I talked it over with Mr. Coberline, so that's why we moved it.
Okay, Mr. Linnell Bowden.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, Glenn Bowden, 1156 Northeast Vascular Norris Drive. As you will recall, Mayor Council, several months ago, the City Council voted to have the former city manager to research and come up with a plan to relocate the monument located just across the street. As you probably know, schools in Jacksonville, Duval County, have been renamed. Confederate names have been taken down, they've been renamed. The statue in downtown Jacksonville is going to cost them $1.3 million to have that relocated, but they've decided to move on that. Statues and monuments of the Confederate is coming down all over the country, even in Virginia, which is the bedrock of the Confederacy. Today, the Historical Society voted unanimously in New York to remove the Thomas Jefferson statue from its state house. And that was a unanimous vote. That means the Republican, Democrats, pro-union, pro-Confederate people that decided that it no longer need to be in the state house. I bring this up, Mayor, because it's been over a year now, and it's time for the citizens to know if this council was serious about that vote and the pursue the action that you took in the past. I don't know if the interim city manager had time to look over Mr. Havenberger's email, but in my conversation with him, he had an on-one conversation with somebody in the community that was interested in participating in relocation. He led me to believe that it had been a decision primarily made to consider relocating to the Confederate Cemetery, for lack of a better term. So I think it's time now for this council to let the public know if you're still going to do that. And if not, those of us who are in favor of having it relocated, then we'll know what position we need to take. And those who are in favor of having it stay, they can take what position they need to take. But I think history is it's not a denying of history to have it relocated. It's a recognition that history has been denied and not been explained properly in the past, and that's why it's such a building divisive issue now. It's not divisive in the community I live in. It's a necessary thing, and it goes a long way towards healing in our community. I also sent an email or letter to the city clerk asking for the information concerning a security camera that's found located right next to the monument, and I'm concerned about that because there's a lot of crime going on in the community. There's murders in the park. There's some things happening now. Maybe there's some police technique that I want to wear, some eyes in the sky, but to have that statue there by that monument does not sit with me and many others in the community. It's almost as if it's there to protect the monument, and I know for a fact that nobody in my community is talking about doing things to the monument. Maybe a camera that got a 360-degree panoramic view, but the fact that it's right there by that monument should be explained. So I would ask that you consider looking into that and come up with a resolution in terms of that. But I do want to know at some point in time, maybe not during this part, what is the council's intention as it relates to that money.
Okay. Next is Sylvester Warren.
Thank you, Mayor. Sylvester Warren, 930 Northeast Oconee. My plea continues to stay the same, Mayor and Council. I just find it just darn right hard to believe in 2021 that we've had to fight so many inequities and disparity north of the railroad track and had to plead and protest and fight with this council. Some of the councils don't look the same, but this particular council about the smallest things, the basic necessities of the predominantly Black community. We went from Christmas lights. I had to fight with this council for almost 3 years about Christmas lights. We finally got string white lights, very small. Christmas is coming up again. I want to make sure that we're ahead of this, that Sallie Mae Jerry Park gets the same recognition as Olustee Park when it comes to the festivity of Christmas lights and other things. Also, for the life of me, I don't understand, Mayor. You always like to toot your horn about your brother over in Jacksonville, which is fine. Why are we not taking downtown in the North Marion Street community seriously? I mean, I've asked this council several times for benches and trash cans. I mean, it's people who live. I cannot help. God knows I cannot help the color skin of people who live in that community. God knows I cannot help how we ended up living in that community and that downtown runs through that community. It's not my fault. But I do know that we pay taxes. We pay the same millage rate, and we deserve the same things on that end of downtown as the other end of downtown. Downtown should not be segregated in one end of downtown. And what's so hurtful is, Mel, you're not Black, but let me tell you what's hurtful is. When you go to the end of Railroad Street, you got a bench right there at the arm of the railroad track crossing. That's where the last bench is at. I mean, it's right there. If you're not careful, the arm can come down on you. It's like it's almost deliberate, like we're not going any further than this railroad track with benches, tables, and trash cans. And that's not right. And this council, it was $800 and some thousand in the CARES Act money when it began. 2 roads have been paved out of that money. We're using some of that money possibly to do the engineering study and possibly the repairs to Memorial Stadium. Ma'am, what we're asking for basic necessities, and it sits in the CRA as well, and there's COVID funds available. I don't understand why nobody on this council can't make a move to go into COVID funds. You've been in them 3 times for everything else, and you can't go in them for some benches and trash cans and some pavers, just so that downtown no longer looks segregated and it looks uniform, and people on that end of town that look like me can have somewhere to sit down and throw their trash away? Why is that such a problem with this council? I just don't understand that. We're human too. We want the same basic necessities. And this is not a major ask. This is a taxpayer asking for the same amenities that's on this end of downtown in his community. We have people who walk. And I don't understand why we have to do this meeting after meeting, why we can't take this low-hanging fruit and deal with it.
Well, I think that is the goal, is do the whole area, and I think that's been said. All right, next is,
I'd like to speak on this. Mr. William, what is the process or what we need to do to get some benches and trash cans on the north end of town, ASAP?
It's my understanding, Mr. Hill, that the benches and the improvements that were done with the pavers and stuff, that came out of CRA funds, okay? We currently have in the CRA budget right now, $255,990, okay? You've got approximately $200,000 earmarked for Mr. McCallum's organization for the housing project. You've got the sign for Sally Mae Jerry Park that you're looking at. We won't get, and that was coming in around $40-something thousand. So your CRA funds, the way that works is you have a CRC advisory council that meets, and at their last meeting, before approving the sign and looking at some other things, we're gathering this information about how much money is left in the budget, how much money do we expect that we're going to have, because we'll get some more money probably around 1 December. Okay, once we know that, the other thing is that it runs on program. The last program was approved in 2014, the best I've been able to find out to this juncture. Probably at the November meeting when the CRAC meets, then they could potentially open up that program for new projects. This project could be added, and then based on funding, we could move forward with possibly doing that.
COVID, man.
Well, like I said, I'm like the community on the north end of town. Like I said, the north end of town got to jump through all these hoops to get some money. But in that same sentence, we spending money on redoing that stadium. They come up here for money for downtown, but there's nothing being spent on the north end of town. There's something wrong with that picture. So we need to get something going ASAP for across the track.
If the council allocates the funds, I'll do it.
well, we're supposed to get together shortly in the next few weeks and find out how much money we have and allocate it where we need to and get a program. And the idea has been to do all the way from one end of town to the other. So that's my plan anyway. Next is Mr. Holcomb.
I was hoping to speak on, I guess, item 15. Not sure what item 15 is, so I'll have to speculate. But I will talk on some of the things that have already reached the floor. One, I think there should be sunshine on this committee. I think everything that you do that has a change or an impact on the community should be done out in public. I think if you're making payrolls, if you're paying automatic bills like replenishing chlorine or doing, the normal steadfast thing that a budget is designed to do, then you shouldn't have to come before the committee or come before the public, but when you're gonna make changes like moving statues, when you're gonna change the performance of government, move facilities, move operations, I think that should be done out in front of the public so that we can actually have a say. Sometimes even have some advice for you, like maybe a vendor or somebody that could expedite what you're doing, but certainly you should do it in front of the public. I think right now, as you're talking about the statue, it's not on the agenda. The general public was not aware that you would discuss this tonight. Please, dear God, let's have any more hit and run decisions where you brought something up quickly in a meeting that it was not noticed and then take action on it before the community has a chance to speak on the subject. At the last opportunity to talk about the monument, you had 14 people speak, half in favor, half against moving the monument, but you had at the next meeting, 600 plus people in a petition that petitioned you not to move the monument. So I think you need to represent the people of the community and not the special interest that you have or the special deal that you made before the meeting. I know, Mr. Hill, how you want that monument moved because it was the only question you really had for every single council person that applied for the job. But it should not be done behind closed doors, or you shouldn't do anything behind closed doors.
Now, if you go back and check the record, when this council voted to move that monument, that vote was unanimous.
You didn't vote to move the monument. You voted to research where it could go.
We voted to move the monument.
You voted where it could go. You wanted to research options and costs. And when it came back to be over $140,000, no one ever came up with the money. There was the discussion going on at that time about who owned the land and who could approve the movement. And then when the manager came back with $144,000 cost to move the monument, you never approved the money, nor did you tell where the money was coming from. That should have been brought to the people on a vote. That there should have been an amendment to the election.
Okay, the 3 minutes is up.
And you should still ask the people what their intention is.
Okay. Okay, next is item 3, and Ms. Coker wanted to speak, at this time.
I'll wait till they have to speak.
B. Coker, 636 Southeast Bay Drive. I would simply ask the council to review the documents and ask for the city attorney to make recommendation to the council. That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Lelker.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Local Columbia County Observer. I have a couple of questions. At the last meeting, during the interviews for the replacement for Mr. Green's vacated seat, I submitted questions to the clerk. Some of you got those at the very last second. Those questions, I don't know how they became a part of the record. They were never read into the record. That was my mistake. I should have come up here and just asked that you ask them. I would ask that they would be asked tonight before Mr. Douglas gets sworn in. One was, do you think a woman should be on the city council? I thought that was a fair question, being that half of the residents in Lake City are women, and there's no woman on the city council. And the other question I asked was, do you think there should be a policy in the city that pays for education for city employees, that contributes? Some people get it and some people don't. Some people get it by contract, doesn't seem very fair, and some people don't. Yet those were just ignored. According to the city's rules, they wouldn't have been asked anyway, because the city's rules are all over the chart and helter-skelter. On item number 3, I don't even know why that's on the consent agenda. I mean, consent agendas are for normal stuff in the normal business of a city. Normal things like approving minutes, that's on there. Approving recurring contracts, maybe. But a resolution to appoint a city council member to the city council says a resolution appointing Stephen A. Douglas as a council member of District 14. That's not on the consent agenda, even though it's above the consent agenda. And if that's the case, then these agendas are getting so bad that nobody can figure them out. Because I've been reading for a long time, and I can't figure this out. It looks like it's on the consent agenda because right after it says approval of the consent agenda. And my other question about that is, that resolution is dated the 13th. I don't know what day it is today. Today's the 18th. And at 1 o'clock this afternoon, that resolution just got added to the city agenda. How is that possible? How can any of you, I know all of you, including the interim city manager who's got a lot of experience, explain that that's good government business to put something on at the 12th hour, so important as to what's going on tonight? You guys need to tighten up your act. The other thing is that I just heard Ms. Snipes explain now, she changed the agenda. Yes, it's her, because she's entitled to my just content.
Anyway, we can hear you.
Well,
I can't hear him.
Thanks, I guess his battery went dead. The rules of this, I beg your pardon, Ms. Sykes?
No, I was just letting them know about how much time you had left before your mic went out.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I know it's real important to know how much people time have left.
You're welcome.
Maybe, thank you. I'd like to know now how it is that the people of Lake City or anybody come to the city council and discuss agenda items. According to the explanation earlier, from what I gathered, Ms. Sykes says we moved it so you could explain everything at once. I don't know anybody that does that. Florida legislature doesn't do that. The county doesn't do that. Actually, the only other people that do that in Columbia County is the college, of all the people. You can explain everything at once. I don't know that that's fair to the public, and I think you guys need to really redo your rules. And that's all I have to say, and I would ask you to consider that. My final thing is this. I've been taking pictures in Lake City since 2006. I've been back there. I spoke to the city manager at the last meeting, and I got banned from taking pictures where I normally do, so I can get photos when people are standing at the microphone. I polled the board, and I spoke to Mr. Hill, and I spoke to Mr. Sampson, and I spoke to Mr. Jefferson, and I spoke to you. None of them knew that I was even there. Yet when I spoke to the interim city manager, he said the city council doesn't want you there. That's his exact words. So I would like to get that straightened out. At meetings, there are places that the press can go, and the interim city manager's idea that if I let you there, I have to let everybody there. That's not true. The press can go back there, or anybody should be able to go there.
Okay,
So I would ask you to consider that. Are you going to? Because I keep getting different things.
we're gonna look into it, but you're way past your treatment.
Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay, city attorney, I believe has some comments or information. Item 3. We just got it.
Yes, Your Honor. Lawsuit was filed this afternoon. It has not been served on the city. It is titled Bethel Coker versus City of Lake City, Florida, City Council. And shows on the paperwork that was just provided that the summons was filed at 2:34 this afternoon. I was able to reach out to some of you all, as well as the opposing counsel that filed it on behalf of Ms. Coker. And the complaint makes two broad allegations, two broad requests for relief. The first is a writ of mandamus to hold the evaluation process of the currently vacated city council member seat over. And two, ask for declaratory relief, finding that Ms. Coker's position is correct and that the Sunshine Law was violated last Wednesday during the council's consideration of filling the currently vacant council seat. Those two broad complaints are based on allegations that I'll summarize as number one of two things, is that when the council ranked the 4 applicants, that was considered a secret ballot. Number two, that the rules of city council meetings were violated because there was not a motion and second on the floor prior to the council discussing the rankings as well as other discussions. I can tell you that whether or not the rankings were a secret ballot would be a factual decision for the circuit court. The council, at least one member, was adamant that the rankings would not be binding on the council when they were calculated, and that the other council members deferred to that. Once the rankings were made public, then the council considered a motion to appoint Stephen A. Douglas, and it was passed 3-1. The rankings were not binding. It was another form of evaluation, just as you all had done earlier in the evening. But a court would have to determine whether or not those rankings were secret ballots, in fact, or simply rankings as you rank many other things in your meetings. The second is that the council did pass rules earlier this year. In those rules, the council must comply with Robert's Rules of Order. You do not have to look far into Robert's Rules of Order, although they're hundreds of pages long, to find that small boards are afforded much more leniency. You don't have to look far because it's in the very first rule, and that a small board is a board consisting of less than 12 members, and that discussions are permitted. Also, for example, the chairperson is allowed to make a motion or second vote. And one other, among many other leniencies, are that you don't have to stand up and be recognized in order to speak. You can do it from your seat. The opposing counsel and I had a very constructive conversation this afternoon, and he concedes that in order for the council to cure any alleged defects, the council would simply need to hold another open meeting, recognized that it would need to be noticed, properly published, and you would evaluate the candidates over again. What that evaluation looks like would be up to your discretion. You would not have to follow the exact evaluating method. You could have a lesser of a method or a more detailed method. But that would be how you would cure the alleged defects. You don't have to admit that you did anything wrong, or you can admit that something was improper. Either way, you would simply have another public meeting to cure those defects. Alternatively, you can defend the lawsuit and seek the court's approval of your procedures. That defense would look something like taking several months to get through the court system. We would have an emergency hearing on whether or not the council would be enjoined from seating anyone until the case was heard by the circuit court. You would then ask the insurance carrier to defend the council's proceedings. I'm not certain that the insurance carrier would take up that defense because there is no claim for monetary relief. Generally, there has to be some claim for compensation. If the insurance carrier does not pick up the defense, then the council or the city would have to pay for the legal defense. So those are your options to defend the suit or to consider having another public meeting and going over the item again. I think that you need to consider your options as you go through item number 3, which is resolution number 2021-154. And consider what's in the best interest of the city council, as you do always, as well as the city and the citizens. The lawsuit is approximately 88 pages long. I received it close to 2 p.m. or just before that. I did not have a chance to look at it on a computer until much later, and so I have not fully reviewed the entire lawsuit. There's also a motion for an injunction, which is commonplace whenever there's an allegation such as this, one alleged by Ms. Coker. So I can entertain any questions to the best of my ability at this time. You will need to consider this litigation when you're considering item 3. And that's why this litigation and this discussion and this report was added to the agenda before item number 3.
Okay. Any comments, council?
Do we need to do this in a manner of a motion or?
You would, at the time item number 3 comes up, you would want to make a motion either to approve the resolution number 21-154 or to table it, for example, if you wanted to go back through the evaluation process and hold another meeting.
Well, I'll make the motion to table this, item number 3. We do the whole interviewing system.
I think that your comments, I'm sure, are well taken, and what you will want to do whenever item 3, that the mayor need to come up to item 3, and then Mr. Hill just restate your motion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, before we get to item 3, so just quickly scanning this, you mentioned the 2 items. So one of them is that there was a secret ballot, is that correct? So I never saw it that way, which is why I was against it from the beginning. Well, not particularly, but it was a ranking system, just like we've used many times, in my opinion. So it's the same system we used, I think, last time we hired a city manager. If it's what it takes to save us from spending money to win a lawsuit, I know recently we won a lawsuit that cost us a lot of money to win because we can't, redress getting the expenses back. So it's unfortunate, but although I think we would, in my opinion, win just on those 2 items. I mean, we definitely followed Robert's rules. If you've read Robert's rules, page 1, you would understand that. So I think that one's pretty easy. Now, anytime you have a judge involved as a sole arbiter, though, it depends on what their viewpoint is. So I'll probably go with whichever way it's going to be the cheapest for the city as far as that goes. If there's any opportunity to recover expenses, then I would say let's defend it. But that's all I have to say about this particular item.
And so I'm gonna call the item, City Council Resolution 2021-154. Mr. Coleman, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, appointing Stephen A. Douglas as council member of District 14 in accordance with the city charter and providing an effective date period.
Okay. Mr. Hill, did you?
Yes, I would like to make the motion to table item 3 and redo the interviewing process.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Comment on that, please. So, what the opposition is, I don't know if the correct thing is working. I don't know that the correct thing is to table this, would be to remove it. Because you guys need to get this one. It is.
His camera. Might be your camera.
I don't know, the thing is to table it, because to table it means just to bring it up again. To bring it up again is to bring up Mr. Douglas again, and with no respect to Mr. Douglas, you don't know what you're gonna do. So if you're gonna start the process over again, this has to be rejected, and the motion would appear to me, Mr. Copeland, would be to begin the process again in whichever way you decide to either interview the candidates or keep what you had. This has to be specific. Don't forget, you guys are in court right now. To keep what you had and go from that point and make it so the contentious ballot, the secret ballot, is not a secret ballot. But tabling it doesn't cure the defect, because it still leaves Mr. Douglas as the next city council person. And we don't know if that's gonna happen. Thank you very much, Your Honor. I would ask Mr. Hill to reconsider what he does and maybe get some legal counsel.
Okay, my comment was, because we just got handed it tonight, I agree with tabling. I disagree with making a decision to have another interview or to defend the lawsuit. I think we need time to look into it and our attorney to look into it, and then have another meeting to decide what direction we want to go. I don't want to, if we have to have a special meeting next week, that's fine with me. But I think we need to evaluate what we're doing before we just jump out and do either way.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for the attorney. So if we table the motion, but we decide to move forward, could we have a special litigation meeting?
Yes, we'll need to have it, well, we will not need to have a special litigation meeting, but we will need to wait until we are actually served with the lawsuit before we can go into a litigation session.
I have another question. So what's the time frame we have to fill that seat?
We have about 60 days from the date that the vacancy occurred, which, Madam Clerk, can you tell me what that day is again? I'm switching, if you know.
I'll see if I can look it up for you.
I believe it's on September 9th, Mr. Sampson. So you would have approximately, so around November 8th.
Yeah, it was received on the 9th at 9:08 a.m.
Well, I don't have a regular meeting for till November. So we would have to have a special meeting to discuss this prior to our time running out.
I'm not opposed to the special meeting, Mayor. Hey, we need to resolve this well better.
I'd be inclined to do a special meeting next Monday and evaluate it. If we get served before then we can go into a litigation meeting during that time.
There, I believe I'd have to notice a litigation session in advance.
Right. So right now, the motion is to table it and do a re-interview. Is that what I'm understanding the motion is?
Would that be a re-interview or a reconsideration? Because is there a need to have another interview since we've already had an interview?
I say another interview.
Okay. Any other discussion, council?
Mr. Mayor, if there's another interview, I think maybe the line of questioning should be a little bit different. I think maybe we should come up with some more individualized questions for the respondents.
Okay. Anything else? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Hill,
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson,
Yeah.
Mr. Sampson,
No.
Mayor Wentz.
No.
What's the motion?
To re-interview.
The motion was to table item 3 and redo the interview process. Redo the interview process. That was the motion.
Okay, is there any other motion?
Mr. Mayor, I have another question for the attorney. If we don't choose someone to sit in that seat, what's the repercussions?
You could be the recipient of another writ of mandamus, which would require you to comply with the charter requirement that you shall fill the seat within 60 days of the resignation.
So we gotta do it.
Are you aware of anyone not fulfilling that in that time frame? I mean, with 4 people, it's very easy to see how it could be 2-2, 2-2.
The answer to your question is yes, I am aware of bodies not complying with their own laws. I certainly don't suggest it. I did not suggest it in that case because you could be the recipient of writ of mandamus. It's very clear that whether or not you would be in violation.
I think my concern is we've completed a process. We came to a resolution. And from my perspective, it was a legal process. So I'm not sure if we go through the interview process again, it's going to be different.
Right.
And I think that's something we need to have set rules on before we go into it. So if we have some set rules of what we're going to do and how we're going to come around to making that decision, that might make sense. Is there anything that requires we have a revisitation of what we did already, or I think we're kind of in uncharted waters on that, but
That's why I think we just table it and reconsider it at a special meeting and try to get our bearings of where we're at and what legally we should or shouldn't do.
Mr. Mayor, if we had a special meeting, but we didn't decide on the process until then, will we then have to have another special meeting?
Yes,
So it'd be 2 special meetings.
right.
Mayor, I want to make sure we're clear here. I think that right now you should consider whether or not you're going to move forward with the resolution that's on the agenda. If you decide that you're not going to move forward with that resolution, you can later on, for example, at the end of this meeting, you can discuss how your next meeting or the redo will look. But the goal at the moment should be to get through with item 3 on the agenda. Also, you will not need 2 meetings to vet out what your evaluation process is going to look like. I'll remind you that we had the item on an agenda a few meetings ago about how the evaluation process was going to look. And what was determined at that meeting is not the evaluation process that resulted in a appointment last Wednesday. And so you do not have to have a clearly defined evaluation process. Is it to everybody's benefit? Absolutely. But again, when you define that process does not have to happen with the motion. For example, Mr. Hill made a motion to table the resolution, redo the meeting with interviews. I would encourage any one of you just to get through item number 3 so that you know what you're going to do with the resolution. Table it, postpone it, whatever you'd like to do with it. Whenever you redo the meeting, then it becomes a legal nullity. But let's just get through item 3 and then have a separate discussion about what your evaluation, as well as when the meeting's going to be held, things like that.
Very briefly, because I don't want to get into this discussion. Give your name and address.
Kim Estergren, 205 Southwest Thrasher Lane. I just have a quick question. Is it appropriate for a city councilman to be gossiping about a candidate for the seat for district?
I don't know about all that. You can answer that.
When it was untrue?
Well, yeah.
I mean, I think it's inappropriate.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve City Council Resolution number 2021-154.
There's a motion to approve City Council Resolution 2021-154. Is there a second? It is not a second, so maybe we could just table it and then readjust it somehow. Without a stipulation as to what we do. Table.
Mayor, somebody already get your attention.
Yes.
Point of clarification is to, because I'm trying to follow Robert's rules.
Excuse me, would you put your name?
I'm sorry, Anthony Newton.
Thank you.
Right.
The question would be, and I think the conflict comes up in the fact that it wasn't a secret ballot and we've all seen how you all voted. And it's part of the public record. So is that conflict if we talk about redoing the reevaluation form? Now, it was embarrassing that we use Scratchpad and we need more of an official ranking system of how they were ranked. But does that create a conflict going forward? Like Mr. Sampson said, we walk into the position of being 2-2 going here out. And so I just wonder, because we've that's public record of how each individual was ranked. Maybe the attorney can provide guidance on what conflict that creates, because we've seen it. We know the outcome in the ranking from each councilman.
Well, that's what he said. That's an item for the courts to decide.
I'm saying if you revisit it and you do the process all over again, does that create a conflict because we know how everybody already leaned? We know which direction everyone already went.
Right.
That's my question.
Thank you. Okay, so we had a motion to approve it. That's not been done. Is there another motion? Mr. Carolina, I guess it just failed for lack of a motion and a second. Correct, Mr. Carolina?
I would agree if you call for a motion and you give an extra courtesy call and no one makes a motion to be entertained, then you would move, it'd be proper to move on to the next item.
Okay, so we're fixing to move from item 3 if there's not a motion by council. Now we're gonna move from item 3.
But, Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I thought we had a motion on the paper for Mr. Hill was to table.
we voted 2-2, so that didn't pass. Then we had a motion by to approve it, and that didn't even get a second, so we're just no motion and a second. Anything to pass? Yes,
Mr. Mayor, so the first one didn't pass because it was 2-2. Who can revisit a modified motion on that? So could Mr. Hill remake a motion, or can anyone make a motion at this point?
anybody can make a motion at this point before I move on.
Mayor, Mr. Hill's motion included a contingency in that the meeting to be redone would include interviews.
Right.
Mr. Hill may make another motion with additional contingencies or no contingencies. Anyone may make another motion aside from what Mr. Hill's first motion was.
And my recommendation, we just make a motion to table it and then figure out what we're doing. But that's up to y'all.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to table this item and then discuss further action at the end of the meeting.
Second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
And Mayor Went.
Yes. Okay. Next is approval of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as published?
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as published.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, next is presentation to open a second public hearing. Corbin Allday, Vice President, Guardian Community Resource Management.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, citizens. Corbett Allday with Guardian Community Resource Management for the record. We're a grants management firm helping the city with a CDBG, Community Development Block Grant COVID funding program. This is our second public hearing, second reading. And I've got a short presentation for you, and then we can have a discussion. And then there is an action item that follows a resolution. CDBG, the acronym that we use so often, is about a federal fund. They are federal funds that come from HUD to the states. They are intended to benefit low and moderate income persons. And we fit into the small city, small county category. So we are under the state. We compete in the state program. Each CDBG project has to meet a national objective, benefit low and moderate income persons, eliminate slum or blight, or address an urgent need like a declared disaster. 70% of funds must benefit low and moderate income persons. The project requirements, besides benefiting low and moderate income persons, it must address COVID. So it must respond to, prevent, or create additional, the example there, cost direct associated with coronavirus prevention, preparation, or response. So rehabilitation of a building to create additional quarantine and isolation rooms for recovering COVID-19 patients would be eligible. Indirect effects are also eligible. Economic and housing market disruptions, small business assistance would be an example. The grant for the CDBG COVID must be between $200,000 and $5 million in size. To show you what low and moderate income is, the median income here is $70,000. For a family of four, the maximum income would be $47,000 would be low to moderate income. Give you an idea of what low and moderate income is according to HUD. The recommended project based on staff input and based on research and the first public hearing is the rehabilitation of the Richard Community Center as a COVID testing site. In order for it to be suitable as a COVID testing site or even a vaccination site, it would need major rehabilitation to the air conditioning, to the kitchens, to the bathrooms. And there's also a recommendation for sidewalks and paving around the community center to enhance access. There you see the black lines are paving and then the pink lines are sidewalks. The budget, which I failed to put in the slides, the budget is $2 million for the building and the paving and sidewalks. There was the process was the first public hearing was held back in February, March. Then there was a pre-application. Then there was a review process at the state, and now we're at the second public hearing. There is no interlocal needed, and right now this is the last action you would take before submitting the application. So the process is the presentation, then public input, then back to the elected officials, and then staff comments and ideas. I know that Mr. Krause with the county is here. He may, but that is my presentation, council members, and I'm here for questions.
This time, we go ahead and ask.
You said sidewalks and air condition, sidewalks around the community center, and air conditioning in the kitchen and what other area?
The whole air conditioning system would be revamped to be a cleaner, air filter system to improve filtration to prevent the spread of COVID. So the entire HVAC system would be rehabbed for the whole center.
Okay. I just misunderstood you because I was thinking that center is already air conditioned and sidewalks is all the way around. Just a misunderstanding.
Okay, anybody in the audience wish to speak before we close the public hearing portion? Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question. I obviously support the project. I also attend the county commission meeting, and I think there's some conversation about ownership of the facility at some point in time. I guess I'm concerned that what we're doing will not end up being a conflict. If Mr. Pratt, he may be able to answer this. I know they're doing some research out there now in terms of right of way. There's another issue that they're trying to enhance the community, enhance the center. So would this process going on behalf of the city impact the relationship the county is trying to establish with ownership, operation? I know the city still on, it's leased out to the county.
Right.
So would this create any kind of conflict going forward? And I guess that's the question for the gentleman who just spoke from Mr. Krause.
Okay, I'm not sure that it would, but do you know of any reason that caused any problem?
No, sir. The county thus far has had nothing but positive comment to me about it.
Mr. Krause, you want to speak?
David Kraus, 338 Southwest Lakeview Avenue, Lake City, Florida. I'm kind of in a strange position, both as a resident, wanting to speak as a resident, and in my capacity as county manager. I personally am very supportive of this project. I also know the county is very supportive of this project. Being able to offer COVID-related services inside the community is very important. Having access to the people in the community to get to the center, through wider roads, through street lighting, through sidewalks is very important, because it's in an area of the county, in an area of the city, that transportation can also often be a problem. People have limited access to transportation. So by providing sidewalks, widening the roads, putting in the street lights, by providing COVID testing or vaccination testing, you're really providing a service to the community that has limited options. And so both as a resident, very supportive, and I believe the county would also be very supportive.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience want to speak on this? If not, then we'll close the public hearing and move on to City Council Resolution 2021-152. Mr. Beverly, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of an application to the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity for a community development block grant, providing for the rehabilitation of the existing Richardson Community Center for the use of COVID testing and vaccinations, providing for consistency with the city's comprehensive plan, providing for consistency with the community development plan, and providing for an effective date period.
Is there a motion as to City Council Resolution 2021-152?
Mr. Mayor, I make a
Mr. Mayor, move for approval of resolution number 2021-152.
second.
Been a motion and a second, any discussion? Ms. Ox, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, that's all you need tonight. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, no old business, so we get into other items. Fire pension board appointee, still looking for somebody for that one. We did get the general pension appointment going. Still looking for somebody. Next, discussion possible action, Lake City Police Department request approval to purchase laptops at a cost of $102,947.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting, this issue came up and there were two questions. One, was this approved state contract? Yes, it is. And the second one is to come up with a funding source. It's very early in the budget year. There's no way to take roughly $103,000 out of the police department budget this early in the year and not know if it's going to create an issue. If the council so desires to do this, we would have to seek funding from contingency or some other source. It may be possible later in the year, in the third to fourth quarter time frame. If there's excess money in police department budget, we may be able to recoup a portion of that or possibly all of it or maybe none of it. But it's too early in the budget year to take $103,000 hit out of the budget because you don't know if you're going to fill all your personnel slots. You don't know what you're going to do or not going to do this early in the year. And it just would create another problem further down the road possibly. So if this is something that you want to do, it would be my recommendation that you take these funds from contingency and then, if possible, recoup some or part or all of them later in the year if the money's available from the police department.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the laptops?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve this funding, and funding source come from the contingency with the stipulation that if in the future we're able to replace or recoup some of that from the police department, we would do so.
Second.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question. So as far as recouping the cost, could we also recoup it from the capital account if we have extra in there, or if we don't spend it that way? Would that be an option?
Later in the year, yes. Okay, but right now, no, because you've got other capital projects that they have in there, and if you do that, then that means that if you take it now, and you got those projects that won't be done, some of those are already started, so you just create another problem by doing it that way. The cleaner way would be to take this out of contingency and then recoup money if it's available toward the end of the year.
Sam? Ms. Ox, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, moving to new business, we have City Council Ordinance 2021-2208 on first and final reading. Ron, do you read that by title?
An ordinance of the City of Lake City, Florida, extending the moratorium related to the issuance of new business tax receipts that are connected to activities that include electronic simulated gaming promotions or electronic sweepstakes as adopted by ordinance 2021-2189, providing for an extension of 90 days, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date period.
Is there a motion as the City Council Ordinance 2021-2208?
Mr. Mayor, I move for the approval of ordinance number 2021-2208.
Is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? I think it's a good thing to do the moratorium for another 90 days and figure out what we want to do. Ms. Ox, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Next, we move into resolutions. The first one is City Council Resolution 2021-149. Mr. Carolina, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution task assignment number 8 to the continuing contract with Jones Edmonds and Associates Incorporated for professional services and assistance with 4 wastewater improvement projects, providing for the payment for the professional services and assistance at a not to exceed cost of $403,000.00 and providing an effective date period.
Is there a motion that the City Council Resolution number 2021-149?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution number 2021-149.
O'Donnell, second. Any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Next is City Council Resolution 2021-150. Mr. Carolina, read that by title.
A resolution of the City Council of City of Lake City, Florida, authorizing the execution of task assignment number 9 to the continuing contract with Jones Edmonds and Associates Incorporated for professional services and assistance with the installation of a 24-inch water main from the Price Creek Water Treatment Plant to the North Florida Mega Industrial Park, providing for the payment for the professional services and assistance at a not to exceed cost of $268,000.00 and providing an effective date period.
Is there a motion on the City Council Resolution number 2021-150?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion for approval of City Council Resolution number 2021-150.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay, item 14, is City Council Resolution 2021-153. Carolina, would you read that by title?
A resolution of the City Council of City of Lake City, Florida, appointing Gwinnell Bowden to the Board of Trustees of the General City Employee Retirement Plan to serve as a trustee and providing for an effective date period.
Is there a motion on the City Council Resolution 2021-153?
Mr. Mayor, move for approval of resolution number 2021-153.
Second.
Been a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? We appreciate our citizens volunteering to do these positions. They're paid very well. Ms. Sykes, will you call the roll?
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Thomas. Okay, next is item 15, and I have several that want to speak to that. Mr. Bowden, you gotta go ahead and speak.
Well, I'm not sure if I want to speak or not. I guess I want to withhold my comments and see exactly what the council is going to do. When I read it, I thought it may be an attempt to keep some things out of the sunshine and to allow for information not to become public. And that's what the statute provides for. But I can tell you now that social media and public conversation, there's conversation already in the public community concerning this. So I think it would be a mistake. I don't agree with the gentleman spoke earlier. I think it would be a mistake to keep as much out of the sunshine. I mean, keep as much in the sunshine as possible. I mean, it would be better.
Okay. Mr. Holbrook, you want to speak on this one?
I'm unaware of what I would be speaking to. Could the council please explain to me what item number 15 represents? And I'm quite sure I do have an opinion.
Okay. Mr. Carolina? On item 15.
Sure. The city received another complaint filed by an employee. It's a grievance naming numerous employees, one of which is the city manager, and therefore the city council would need to take action on at least that portion of the complaint. Summarization includes that the actions of many employees have created a hostile workplace environment for the one complaining employee. So again, the recommendation to the council will be that because it names a city charter officer, which the council is responsible for supervising. The council would either investigate the complaint against the city manager at a minimum and render a decision, or refer the investigation out to a professional individual or entity to conduct the investigation, provide findings, and perhaps recommendations for you to consider at a later date.
My recommendation would be to do what we've done in the past, and that's to send it out. And there's that group that did Mr. Randall Johnson's a few years back, but did a pretty good job. If they're available, I'd recommend we do that.
I'll defer to your wisdom on that.
But I think that's just something we need to send out and investigate independent source. I know very little about this.
I'll support that recommendation, Mayor.
You want to make that a motion?
I will.
There's a second.
Second.
Put a motion and a second to send it. That to send it, I don't remember what firm that was, but that way we wouldn't have to go through a whole process.
When you say what firm that was, I'm not sure I heard your earlier comments to.
The comment was to send it to the independent source, and recommended that we use the same firm. And so I guess that's what Mr. Jefferson's motion was. You're saying
The same firm that the council decided upon on the last
right
complaint of charter officer that was investigated?
Yes. Okay, any further discussion?
I know about all of them. You know, talking about the phone, I'm always concerned about spending city money when everybody have an opportunity to make. I don't know the name of the firm, I don't know how much the investigation costs, but to make a decision tonight that we just gonna use that firm because that firm you in Mr. Johnson's case, I don't think that's fair unless it's gonna be less than the amount that's required. It's worth about 15,000, whatever city manager spend, it's gonna have to go out to bid. If it's less than that, you can make that decision, but if it's more than that, I think it should go out to some type of search process. I'm sure there's other people that do more work other than the firm.
And I understand what you're saying, but I think to get this matter moving on and get it done, and not delay it, I think it's better to do it the way I'm recommending.
That's fine, Mel, but you missed my point. What I'm making is that if there's a Bowden and Jones firm out there that does the same kind of work, and I want an opportunity to get over and do the work if it falls under the minimum. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Thank you, Ron. Now that we know what the proposition is, I believe it was Alan Norton and Blue that did the investigation, but the record reflects that Mrs. Sykes is shaking her head yes. I believe the cost was somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000. Maybe 15, maybe 20. I don't think it was much more than that. Right. But considering the financial condition of the city, which as we all know, you're not floating on a sea of expendable and disposable cash. There is nothing that prohibits the city council from doing its own investigation. The Constitution of Florida, everything allows you guys, including the city charter, allows you folks to do your own investigation. For you to do that, you have a city attorney here who's certified in municipal law and all sorts of kinds of law, if you ask him, that he couldn't supervise that. But to go out and spend $15,000 to $20,000 for somebody to investigate that you guys, something you can do yourselves. I mean, clearly what happens is, and I will tell you, Alan Norton and Blue is not the best law firm in the world for doing this kind of stuff. They disappeared public records from Columbia County. So I would ask this board to reconsider this. I don't care who the charter officer is, but you guys are capable of doing this yourselves, and this would be a big expense saved by the taxpayers of Columbia County and of Lake City, and wouldn't be a preconceived outcome. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Okay. I'll stick with my recommendation. I think we need to group to look at that. Anything further? Ms. Sykes, you call the roll.
Mr. Jefferson,
Well, I agree that we should put it out for bid. We may can get somebody to do it cheaper.
How long take to send out for bid, Mr. Carolina?
I don't know how long the procurement department's going to take. It's going to be tough to receive bids because if you're asking for someone to do, perhaps, for example, your contractual services of handling HR investigations, that's one procurement avenue. The other is if you're asking them to do one investigation, then they're likely going to want to look at the exempt public records to look to see how much work is involved. For example, if we set out to investigate one employee filing a grievance against another employee, then you know you have two witnesses and maybe some collateral witnesses that are elicited. In this case, I believe there's upwards of 13 individuals named. So that's would likely be more costly than the hypothetical I provided a moment ago. It's going to be tough to get a representative bid whenever the records are exempt from public records.
Right. And did you want?
Well, I just want to say that it's gonna be over 20,000. 20,000 and above, it's gonna have to go for. We'll have to have a clear scope of work, what's gonna be needed on our RFP.
Mr. Carolina, could you approach them and see if they could do it for less? If they do it for under 20,000, and if they say no, they can't guarantee that, then we'd have to do it.
Well, with the council suggesting it and putting into the minutes the reasons, we're right back where we were only a couple months ago on a different procurement issue. If it's over 20,000, then the council can waive the procurement requirements with the findings in the minutes. And the findings have been mentioned. So we can certainly go out for competitive bids. I think we're going to run afoul of our own HR policy because we have not investigated timely. But we will do whatever the council's desire is. We have several impediments here in procurement. We have the fact that these records are exempt from public records at this time. We have a procurement policy, but it can be waived at times. And then we have, obviously, the timeframes that are placed on us by the HR policy, which I don't recall off the top of my head. And skipping looking it up, but I believe we're supposed to be investigating these things within 10 days of filing.
So can we do motions?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
So the 10 days is to start the investigation and within 10 days, is that?
I believe so. I'll look it up.
All right. So we have a motion.
I'll, if I can have just a moment there. Personnel policy states, quote, "The supervisor shall meet with the employee and provide a written decision to the employee within 7 calendar days following receipt of the formal complaint form." In this case, the supervisor at a minimum would be the city council.
Anything further? Sorry, call the roll.
Let me verify the motion real quick, Mayor. Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, just one second. Is the motion to send the complaint to Alan Norton in blue?
Yep.
Okay. And the motion was by Mr. Jefferson and seconded by Mr. Hill.
Yep.
Okay, Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes. Okay. Now we got Department of Administration. Mr. Wade, you got anything?
Yes, sir. Update on Memorial Stadium. North Florida Professional Services, have a man lift delivered today. They've already done all their drawings. They're continuing, their inspection. They're now working on the upper half of the structure. They should have everything collected by the end of this week, first of next week, after which they will send to their structural analysis person, and then they will make those calculations. We should have a report back to the council by the November 1st meeting.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yeah.
the last item we just went to exemplifies an issue that's been known for some time. I believe Ms. Fields and I had briefly introduced the matter and plan on working towards the procedure of evaluating complaints. As soon as we have a permanent HR director, it will become even more of a priority to get an HR policy revised that allows for a cursory evaluation and perhaps will make suggestions of how to evaluate complaints that are going before the city council when the records are exempt from public disclosure.
Okay, thank you. All right, is there any way we want to go back to item 3 and discuss what we're gonna do with that? Even table for right now.
Well, I think we need to set a special meeting.
I was thinking that the chief has a promotion and swearing in ceremony next Monday night, so we got that. So I'm good next Tuesday as far as I know. That'd be the 26th. That good with everybody? Special meeting Tuesday, 26th, 6 o'clock.
Mayor, what's
We
the,
advertise to do what now?
what's the purpose of the meeting, Mayor?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask Mr. Gerbeline. We can discuss it. Could we actually take action that night, either making a decision as far as where we're at, or do we just discuss it? What could the meeting be about so that we advertise it properly?
You can advertise it just as you did, or very similar to the last agenda, I believe it was October 13th. The item could be almost verbatim. The bigger question is, how will you all conduct your evaluations? I can tell you legally, it's legally sufficient to draw names out of a hat. So that leaves you with little direction from your attorney, other than that there's a lot of discretion you can use in the evaluation process. It is to be legally sufficient. It does not have to be the prettiest evaluation process. In fact, it doesn't even have to be pretty. But if you get a meeting set, and then you can discuss either tonight or at that meeting or sometime in between, if we have another meeting, what that evaluation process is going to look like.
Okay.
I think we could set the meeting just like we did before then.
Yeah. Well, We're not saying in how we're gonna do it, just we're gonna come. All righty, any, comments to council?
We need a motion on that?
Mayor. The last meeting was advertised as the City Council District 14 interviews, and then it says interviews will be conducted at the times indicated below or as soon thereafter as possible. And then we gave each person a time, and they were 20 minutes apart. So when Mr. Overline says that we can almost advertise it verbatim, or am I advertising it exactly like that? I need you guys to give me clear direction on that.
In favor of putting down that we're gonna re-interview.
Basically, we're gonna write down discussion and action by city council, and then what are we doing after that?
I think that's what we gotta decide.
Yeah, what was the last item that was on that agenda?
On this one,
Mm-hmm.
before adjournment, is a discussion and action by council again. There was, it's a pledge, invocation, roll call, approval of agenda, persons wishing to address council, discussion and action by city council, and in City Council District 14 interviews. Interviews will be conducted at the times indicated below or soon thereafter as possible. Then you had Kim Boucher, Abby Chastain, B. Coker, Stephen Douglas, Ricky Jernigan. The next item was discussion and action by council again, and then adjournment.
So could the agenda just be discussion and action, and then with the item being, selecting a council member for District 14?
I think that sounds.
Question. If that would cover, if that would be legally sufficient, that would be a Mr. Caroline question.
That'll certainly be legally sufficient. I think we would include in there that it would be a revisitation of the October 13th, or stated otherwise, that previously filed applications will be reviewed. So in other words, there would be no question about whether or not the application process is being opened back up. You'd be revisiting the October 13th meeting, or you would be revisiting the previously filed applications.
There a motion to do that?
Let me just read that.
I don't have it down yet, Stu. Give me just a minute, please.
I would make a motion to do that. Without reopening the application process, so revisiting the October 13th meeting.
Possible action.
And discussion and possible action.
It was revisiting the previously filled applications will be reviewed, or it's revisiting the previously filled
No, I think the way.
filed applications. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh.
Does that include, interview process?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Sampson making that motion, is there a second?
It could,
Second.
Did you want to say something?
no, I'll wait until after that, we can have discussion.
Okay, so you made a motion to revisit it, Mr. Jefferson seconded. All right,
Okay, so we could decide all different avenues, like the attorney alluded to. There's a lot of legal ways to do it. So
right.
I say this just leaves it open.
Any other discussion? Ms. Sykes, be called roll.
Mayor, I just want to clarify the motion. I do apologize. So it is a motion to have discussion and action by the city council for selecting a city council member for District 14, excuse me. And it's revisiting of the October 13th previously filed applications. Yes?
Sounds good to me.
All right, Mr. Sampson?
I got a question. Whoa. On this proposition now? So does this mean on that night you can choose somebody to fill that seat?
Right.
Part of this? That's what this is? Yes?
Right.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's normally not me. But I think the problem we're getting ready to walk into is this is what we did the last meeting. And before you vote on this, you need to go into it with a clear, this is what we're going to do.
Because what my fear is that you're gonna be in the exact same spot and we open ourselves up to a repeat process. So I think it's fair to the people if we go ahead and establish, we're gonna try this system first, this system second, and then this system third. And if all three of those systems fail, we'll come back to this process because you're walking into doing it open, being in the exact same position that you're in right now. Because it was established before, we're here now, we're getting ready to hit repeat. That's what it sounds like. We're literally hitting the repeat of the end of agenda where we did a process, and it's not fair to not have a process in place because it could go the exact same way if you don't have something clear in place, even if you're going to evaluate, saying this is our evaluation form coming into it to be fair to everyone that's going to be a part of it. I just think you're opening the door to repeat the process. That's all.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a comment about that? Mr. Newton, that's some good points. I think we were extremely fair last time and we followed the rules that needed to be followed. So from my perspective, I think we completed the process. I think what happened thereafter is then we were served with a lawsuit, and rather than put the city on the hook to defend that lawsuit and win it, we're going to revisit the process. That's the way I see it. So
I see it that way as well. My problem is if it was me, sitting in that seat of extending a lawsuit, I could extend it again if we do the exact same process, which is, even though we said we've done it fair, whatever the position is by both sides.
Mr. Newton, that's exactly a point I made to the city attorney. No matter what the process is, someone could extend a lawsuit.
So that's why I think we should go ahead and establish.
And even then, there could be a lawsuit.
But
if you lose, you lose.
Now, then I think you kind of circumvent that just a little bit. I hear the term repeat the process, and I'm like, hell, we've done it once. Why are we gonna repeat it again the exact same way? We need to establish a rule. Just my opinion.
Thank you. Sorry, speak call the roll, please.
Mayor, before I call the roll, I needed to add to that motion that the authorization was to have the special meeting on October 26th at 6 p.m. I did not read that initially. I just wanted to make sure that everybody was sure. That was in the motion. Okay. Mr. Sampson?
Yes.
Mr. Jefferson?
Yes.
Mr. Hill?
Yes.
Mayor Witt?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments of council? If not, we'll be adjourned.